As we went around the planet at 17,500 miles per hour, you saw this green glow when you were in the southern hemisphere. And in the northern hemisphere, you would see these purple and yellow and blue lights just popping from the particles hitting the atmosphere. Every orbit, the sun rises and sets every 45 minutes. So as you go around the planet, you see this setting, and then another 45 minutes later, the rising of the sun. On my first mission, I was told that cosmic rays would come through the vehicle and hit your optical nerve. It would make you think you're seeing flashes of light, even though that's not really happening. The flashes were like a sunburst of different colors. You would see this streaks of color popping in your eyes and in your head. Sleeping in space is pretty incredible because you're floating inside your sleeping bag, but then you had this whole den of pumps and motors and things whizzing around you, and so it's almost like you're in a factory, a mechanical kind of sounding automation going on. My dreams were so vivid from all the stimulus from the day. I saw blues, greens, whites, whether they came from the ocean, whether it came from the sun, or whether it came from flashes in my head from these high energy particles. The colors were intertwined into my dream state, and I saw sometimes alien forms. The green aurora australis is moving and dancing, so you think of the little green men on Mars. There was one point in the mission where I started dreaming about a inside-out cheeseburger with the most grease and just chomping into this hamburger. It's something that we cannot have in space, and also a big slice of pizzas. I think because I've had these experiences and I've seen these incredible things in the universe, all of that's now incorporated into my dreams now. So I constantly dream about lights flashing and colors and velvet, pitch black night sky and these little white lights coming through. My name is Leland Melvin. I'm an astronaut and a great big storyteller. I can imagine us having Thanksgiving wherever we are in our universe, whether it's Pluto, Mars, the moon, or wherever. I think as we explore as a civilization, we'll take our traditions with us and break bread in that same way. I spent Thanksgiving in space on my second space shuttle mission in 2009. There were 7 astronauts total. We were like around a campfire with no campfire, but floating in the air. My Thanksgiving meal was irradiated smoked turkey. We had thermally stabilized cornbread dressing, rehydrated green beans, and oh my goodness, these other kind of crazy kind of candied yams. We always play with our food in space, so I think maybe a green bean or two was floated over and catch the green bean. It was pretty cool. Off the planet, you're in this incredible community of explorers. And that was one thing that I really felt so connected to, was these people that I'm breaking bread with and being thankful for on Thanksgiving Day. I'm sure the Pilgrims or the Native Americans probably never would have imagined turkey in space. Thanksgiving on Mars would be, similar to it being on the space station, except for your food wouldn't be floating around because there's 1/6 G on Mars, so 1/6 of the gravitational pull on the planet Earth. You would have your irradiated smoked turkey on the table, sitting there, not floating away. Training for sports gets you in a mindset of being perfect, of being exact, of being disciplined. That carries over exactly to space. I was drafted to play out of college to the Detroit Lions in 1986, and then ended up playing with the Dallas Cowboys as a wide receiver on both teams. And then I was injured, and then it wasn't until after I left the NFL that I was interested in becoming an astronaut. When you're launching from Kennedy Space Center on millions of gallons of fuel, you are on the most incredible rocket ride to space. And when you get there, that adrenaline is still raging through your body, and you have to calm down a little bit. So my training as an athlete helped me control that adrenaline rush. It made me focus and stay disciplined. The first time floating in space, you're trying to navigate what you're doing and where you're going with your body, but training as an athlete has you understanding a lot more about your body, and you're controlling these little micro accelerations with your body as you push off of things to make sure that you don't damage anything. When I decided to become an astronaut, I saw it was very similar to being an NFL player because there was teamwork involved. The quarterback is like the commander. So the quarterback sets the tone, says, we're running this play, Leland, you do the down and out, and then, I'm gonna throw you the ball. The commander on the mission says, Leland, it's time for you to take over this role. We have a malfunction. I need you to do this. On the football field, you have to cowboy it up to get the win. The win in space is when you get your primary objectives done, like getting the Columbus Laboratory installed on the space station. And the real win is when you get home and land and you're safe and sound. When you get to space, because you're in a zero-G environment, some really funky things happen to your body. I grew an inch. Right now I'm 5'11", but in space I was 6 foot tall. On the ground, gravity compresses your spine. It pulls you down, the force vector going down. In space, without gravity pulling your spine down, every vertebrae has a chance to move up, which gives you your extra inch of height. After my spine elongated, when I went to bed on the first night, I felt some back pain, some lower back pain. And so I actually curled up to kind of alleviate that pain, to kind of stretch it out even more. A few other ways the body can change in space are, the heart gets smaller and changes shape because it's not having to pump as hard to pull the blood up from your feet, because now things are just floating and working inside your body, so it's pumping easier, therefore the muscle walls actually change the shape and they get smaller. Without gravity, your bones, they change shape and they lose calcium and they become more brittle. So we run on a treadmill that you strap yourself down to, and you run on the treadmill to actually give loads into your bones to keep them from atrophying and losing bone density or calcium. For some people in space, your intracranial pressure changes with pushes on your eyeball, and that changes its shape, therefore requiring you to wear glasses in space, so it affects your vision. So we keep different prescriptions of glasses on board just in case someone's vision changes. Any changes in our bodies and anything that happens in space, it's worth it for the spirit of exploration. Eating in space is incredible because you can play with your food. You can float your food away from you and fly into it and go get it, or you can have someone throw food to you. I play with my food every chance that I got. We would just open up a bag of Raisinets and let them float in front of our face, and so we would and then water bubbles and M&Ms would make a very cool science experiment where you're throwing M&Ms into the water bubble and they migrate around the top of the water bubble. And that's 2 sips. Liquids in space is a lot of fun because you make this water bubble grow and grow and grow. You detach the straw from it and then you float over and you suck the water bubble. So the museum gift shop freeze-dried ice cream is not something that we have in space. We have these different types of thermally stabilized and irradiated food so that the food can last for a long time in space. Because if you take fresh food up there, it will start to get stale in space or start to mildew or mold. My favorite food in space was, I think, the beef brisket, and then we had macaroni and cheese. We had string beans with almonds, which had a nice flavor. And then the smell was pretty much the same, but some astronauts' taste buds get desensitized to the taste, and so they want more spices. We have pepper, and we have salt, and we have hot sauce and things that we use for our meals. I think the best part of eating in space was having this meal with a community of people from around the planet, some of which used to fight against. And so people are all convening, breaking bread while we're floating in the galley. in the midday. When you go to space and you look back at the planet from that orbital vantage point, the Earth is just little blue marble. The perspective that you get from that vantage point cognitively changes you. The orbital shift for me happened after I broke bread with my space station crewmates and my space shuttle crewmates. We're listening to Sade, we're eating this meal, and we're doing what people used to fight against. Russia and Germans were on our flight. It just showed me how close we are as countries, as races, as species, to think that we have all these distances and separations and geographical boundaries, but in space you don't see any of those. I think the thing that changes your thinking in space is that you're doing something that only a very small number of people have done. In the history of human spaceflight, it's only been like 500 people that have had this opportunity to go off the planet, and now you're one of them. You get much calmer when you come back from space because the things that you thought were a big deal are no longer a big deal. These things that are happening day to day, like a hangnail or tripping or someone cutting you off in traffic, it pales in comparison to the experience that you have had. Space transformed me to think about how do we get that next generation to take my seat and go off somewhere else and do much better things. Space is an incredibly dangerous place. If you do something wrong, it's game over, so the stakes are very high. To keep everyone safe, we practice routinely emergency procedures. I think the biggest emergency is loss of depress or depressurization. If something's coming at you and hits the space station, then that's going to cause a breach. And it could be something as small as 2 centimeters in diameter that could do a lot of damage. Everyone would go to their respective vehicle and close the hatches. Because initially, if it's very fast, you only have so much time to get in that vehicle, safe it, and be ready to go home. Another situation we train for is fire. If a fire alarm goes off, on our computer screen, you would see the actual module where the smoke detectors think you're seeing a fire. And then you would actually physically go there to see if you actually have identified smoke or flames or anything coming out. The solar flare, the sun kind of burps every so often and sends out high energy particles from the sun. The dangers around solar flares are that you can accumulate too much radiation in your body. If there's a solar flare, all of the astronauts float up into the doghouse, we call it, that has a ton of water bags surrounding it, and the water will absorb and keep the radiation from coming into our bodies. And we just wait until Houston gives us the call to say everything's clear. As astronauts, you're trained to not be alarmed by things. You're trained to go into a mode of, how will I save the day? How will I fix this? How will I do all the steps required to make sure that we come home safely? Coming home, I think the best part was seeing my family and friends and feeling this immense love and pride and just feeling great to see them. And then just walking on terra firma again, not floating around, but just feeling the earth beneath you. That's a beautiful moment. I had those moments of, where am I? Am I in space? Am I at home? Am I on the ground? How am I gonna move? How am I gonna eat? Am I gonna throw food in the air and go fly and get it? To walk on the beach was just the most incredible thing. When you look at the horizon, it kind of helps re-gauge your gyros in your inner ears, and it helps you know exactly what's up and down and right and left. Driving felt interesting because you had been traveling at 17,500 miles per hour. And then you come back and you get in your car and you're like, oh, I'm going 60 miles an hour, huh? That's nothing. I'm going 100 miles an hour, that's nothing. It changes the way you think about speed. I think food tasted better. After eating the rehydrated vegetables and the irradiated turkey, coming home to a wonderful meal and sharing it and not having to go chase it when it bounces off or something, and you can, pick it up and it's coming to your mouth. That's pretty cool. If you want to go to space, it would be one of these things that is transformative on so many different levels. I would tell future explorers to make sure that when you worked with others, that you work as a team, you see all people as potential, space travelers together, no matter what language they speak, no matter what they look like, no matter what food they eat, and to know that we're all in this together and work hard and share the fun.